You know, I always believed I had it all figured out. Lisa and I, we had something real. I wasn't one of those guys who questioned loyalty or wondered what was happening behind closed doors. No, not us. We were different. Our relationship was solid, built on trust, love, and years of shared moments that I thought would last forever. I mean, I never had any reason to doubt her. Lisa was everything I'd ever wanted. The kind of woman who's not just your wife, but your best friend. The person you come home to after a long day, knowing she's there, and it's all just good. You get what I'm saying, right? It was that unshakable feeling that I had found the one. My partner for life. I believed in her. In us. Sure, I'd heard stories. Other guys at work, friends, neighbors, talking about how their relationships hit rough patches, infidelity, trust issues, all of it. But not me. Not Lisa. She was loyal. I never thought twice about it. I had this picture in my head of us growing old together, side by side, no doubts, no drama. And I'm not going to lie, part of me had this fear, just like any man does, that deep down, something could go wrong. You know what I mean? That little nagging voice that says, "What if?" But I pushed it away every single time because Lisa wasn't like that. She was the reason I believed in loyalty, in commitment. I'd tell myself, "Come on, Mike, she's not capable of that. She's not one of those women." Looking back, maybe I should have paid more attention to those small moments, those little doubts. But I was too busy living in this bubble I'd created, this perfect world where betrayal wasn't even a possibility. In my mind, it just wasn't on the table. Not for us. But life has a funny way of pulling the rug out from under you when you least expect it, doesn't it? One minute you're standing tall, sure of everything you know, and the next, everything changes. I didn't see it coming. Not even close. It was a normal day, nothing special. I came home like always. Lisa was in the kitchen, cooking, the kids running around. It was just normal. We were chatting about some weekend plans, where to go with the kids, what to do, nothing heavy, and then, out of nowhere, she just looks at me, her face completely serious, and says, "I know you've been cheating on me." I swear, for a second I thought she was joking. I even laughed. It sounded so ridiculous. "What are you talking about, Lisa?" I asked. But she wasn't joking. She wasn't even close to joking. The way she looked at me, it was like she truly believed it. I froze. I couldn't even respond for a minute. My brain was trying to catch up. I'm standing there staring at her, thinking, this can't be real. This isn't happening. I've never cheated on her, not even once. And here she was, accusing me of it. I asked her again, "Lisa, what are you talking about? Where is this coming from?" But she just doubled down. She started throwing these things at me, talking about how I've been distant lately, how I've been staying out late after work, how I smiled too much at the waitress at our regular diner. It was like I'd suddenly been cast as the villain in some story I didn't even know I was part of. Everything I did, everything I said, was suddenly being twisted, turned into evidence against me. I kept telling her, "You've got this all wrong. I would never do that to you." But it didn't matter. Her mind was made up. And you know what hit me the hardest? It wasn't just the accusation. It was the fact that she didn't even ask me. She didn't come to me with questions, with doubts. No, she came to me with a decision. She had already decided I was guilty. And that crushed me. I remember standing there feeling like the walls were closing in. How could she think this? How could she believe, even for a second, that I would betray her like that? It wasn't just an accusation. It was an attack on everything I thought we had, everything I thought we built together. The worst part? I started questioning myself, not because I had done anything, but because the way she was looking at me, the way she was so convinced, it made me wonder if maybe I'd missed something. Maybe I hadn't been as good a husband as I thought. But that didn't make any sense either. I knew, deep down, I'd been nothing but loyal. Still, the doubt was there. Not about what I did, but about why she would say this. Why now? What was really going on here? It didn't make sense. And the more I thought about it, the more something didn't add up. Lisa wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. So where was this accusation coming from? And why now? I couldn't shake it. No matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried to distract myself, it was always there. That conversation with Jim, it replayed in my head over and over again. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want this to be real. But the more I thought about it, the more it all made sense. Lisa. Cheating. The words didn't even fit together in my head at first. I mean, how could they? For years, I thought we had something special, something other couples envied. But now I was questioning everything. The doubts started creeping in, taking over every thought. Was she really capable of this? Had I missed all the signs? I went back in my head, replaying the last few months, looking for clues, anything that would tell me how long this had been going on, or why. I remembered the nights she'd come home late, saying she was out with friends. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? I trusted her. But now I wondered, was she really out with friends, or was she with him? There were the sudden shifts in her mood, the distance between us that I couldn't explain. I thought maybe it was stress from work, or just one of those rough patches every couple goes through. I never thought for a second that she was pulling away because she was with someone else. And then there were the little things. The texts she'd quickly hide, the nights she'd make excuses not to be close to me. It's funny, when you're in the middle of it, you don't see it. You convince yourself everything is fine. You make excuses. I guess it's easier to live in denial than to face the truth staring you in the face. But now, with Jim's words hanging over me, I couldn't deny it anymore. Lisa had betrayed me, and suddenly I was questioning everything we'd built, everything I thought I knew about her, about us. I tried to tell myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew better. Deep down, I knew this was real. The trust I had in her, in our marriage, it was gone. But then the doubt started to turn on me. Was it my fault? Had I pushed her away somehow? Did I do something to make her look elsewhere? I know it sounds crazy, but when you're in that kind of pain, you start to wonder if you were the problem all along. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I hadn't paid enough attention to her. Maybe I wasn't the husband I thought I was. That's what was messing with my head. I wasn't just questioning Lisa. I was questioning me. Was this my fault? Did I do something to deserve this? And yet, as much as I doubted myself, I kept coming back to one thing. Lisa had lied. She had broken us. And now, I had to figure out what to do next. But I couldn't think clearly. My head was spinning, and every time I tried to make sense of it, it all fell apart. I kept telling myself, you need to confront her. You need to hear it from her. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wasn't ready to face the truth head-on. Not yet. I wasn't ready to see the look in her eyes when she realized I knew. Because once I did, there'd be no going back. I guess part of me was still holding on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe Jim was wrong. But deep down, I knew. I knew that everything had already changed, whether I wanted to face it or not. I couldn't wait any longer. I'd spent days going over it in my head, questioning myself, questioning her, trying to make sense of it all. But there was no more room for doubt. I had to confront Lisa. I needed to hear it from her. I needed her to look me in the eyes and tell me the truth. I remember the moment so clearly. She was in the living room, scrolling on her phone, like nothing was wrong, like everything was normal. But to me, nothing about this was normal anymore. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and I could barely breathe. I walked in, and she didn't even look up, just sitting there, calm, like the world hadn't turned upside down. I stood there for a second, just watching her. How could she look so peaceful. How could she sit there like that after everything she'd done? "Lisa," I said, my voice shaking. She glanced up, raising an eyebrow, like I'd interrupted something important. "We need to talk." Her expression didn't change. "About what?" she asked casually, like this was just another conversation, but I wasn't playing games, not anymore. "About the affair," I said, my voice stronger this time. The words hung in the air, heavy and unforgiving. For a split second, she froze. Her fingers stopped moving on her phone, her face went pale. And she knew. She knew I knew. She tried to play it off. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice a little too calm, a little too collected. But I wasn't having it. "Don't lie to me," I said, stepping closer. I know about him, Lisa. I know what you've been doing. I talked to Jim." And that's when it all fell apart. Her face twisted, panic flashing in her eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. She was caught. There was no more hiding, no more pretending. I could see it in her face, the guilt, the fear, the realization that she couldn't escape this. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but her voice was shaky. She couldn't even look me in the eyes. I could feel the anger rising inside me, that hot, burning feeling that had been building for days. "How long, Lisa?" I asked, my voice low but firm. "How long have you been lying to me? How long have you been seeing him behind my back?" She didn't answer at first. She just sat there, staring at the floor, like if she didn't say anything, maybe this would all go away. But it wasn't going away. Not this time. "You accused me," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You stood there and accused me of cheating, when all along you were the one doing it. How could you do this to us, to our family, to me?" Finally, she looked up at me, her eyes full of tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry." But sorry wasn't enough. Not after everything she'd done. Sorry didn't fix the lies, the betrayal, the nights I spent wondering what I'd done wrong. It didn't fix the fact that she had torn apart everything we had built. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why, Lisa? What did I do to deserve this?" She started to cry, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered. I remembered how she made me feel. How she had turned our life upside down, made me doubt myself, made me feel like I was losing my mind, and all the while, she was lying to me. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she sobbed. It just happened." "It just happened," I repeated, my voice full of disbelief. "An affair doesn't just happen, Lisa. You made a choice. Every time you saw him, every lie you told me, you made a choice." She was crying harder now, her shoulders shaking. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed then. A bitter, hollow laugh. "Didn't want to hurt me. You've been hurting me for months, Lisa. Every time you lied to my face, you were hurting me. And now you say you didn't want to hurt me?" She didn't have an answer for that. She just kept crying, and I just stood there, feeling like a stranger in my own home. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't the life I had signed up for. I couldn't even look at her anymore. I turned away, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. I had thought this confrontation would bring me some kind of closure, but all it did was make everything hurt even more. I had my answers, but none of them made me feel better. None of them took away the pain, and now I had to figure out what to do next. Because this was something I couldn't come back from. I thought confronting her would give me some kind of closure, some sense of control over everything that had happened. But it didn't. If anything, it made me feel worse. I thought hearing the truth would help me move forward, but instead, it just left me feeling hollow, empty. After that conversation, I couldn't look at her the same way. I couldn't look at myself the same way. Everything felt different, off. It wasn't just that she had cheated. It was that she had made me question everything about myself. I kept thinking, was it me? Did I do something wrong? Was I not enough? I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with all the things I should have done differently. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention to her. Maybe I wasn't the husband I thought I was. Every little thing I'd ever done, every argument, every time I came home late, it all replayed in my head, over and over again, like a broken record. And the worst part? The worst part was that she had accused me first. She had planted that seed of doubt in my mind, made me feel like I was the one who was wrong, the one who wasn't doing enough. And for a while, I believed it. I believed her. I started questioning myself, wondering if maybe I wasn't good enough for her. If maybe, somehow, I deserved this. It's a messed up feeling, to think that you deserve the pain someone else caused you. But that's where I was. That's where she had put me. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I wasn't the confident guy I used to be. I wasn't the man who had built a life, a marriage, a family. I was just broken, shattered into a million pieces, and I didn't even know how to start putting myself back together. Every day felt like a struggle. I'd get up, go through the motions, pretend like everything was fine for the kids, for work. But inside, I was drowning. I couldn't escape the thoughts, the questions, the feeling of not being enough. I kept asking myself, what did she see in him that she didn't see in me? What did he have that I didn't? Was it money? Was it looks? Was he funnier? More exciting? More something? It was like this constant comparison running in my head, and every time I came up short. I wasn't good enough. I hadn't been good enough to keep her, and that realization, it destroyed me. My self-esteem, my confidence, it all crashed down around me. I wasn't just questioning the marriage anymore. I was questioning me, who I was, what I was worth. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without seeing all the ways I had failed. I saw the cracks in my own reflection. I saw the man who had been cheated on, the man who couldn't keep his wife. And I hated that guy. I hated feeling weak. I hated feeling like I wasn't in control of my own life anymore. That's what betrayal does to you. It takes away your sense of self. It makes you doubt everything about yourself, about your life, about your worth. And it's not just the betrayal itself. It's the way it lingers, the way it eats away at you, long after the moment has passed. I couldn't escape it. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I told myself it wasn't my fault, the doubt was always there, whispering in the back of my mind, telling me I wasn't enough. After days of sitting in my own head, replaying everything over and over, I knew I couldn't do it alone. I had to talk to someone. I needed to hear someone else's voice, someone to tell me that I wasn't losing my mind, that I wasn't alone in this. So I called up my brother, Dave. He's always been the guy I go to when things get rough, level-headed, calm. I figured if anyone could help me make sense of this, it'd be him. We met at a bar, the kind of place we used to hang out when we were younger, back when life felt simpler. I wasn't sure how to even start the conversation. I mean, how do you tell your brother that your wife has been cheating on you, that everything you thought was solid is crumbling beneath your feet? I must have sat there in silence for a minute before I finally just blurted it out. Lisa's been cheating on me. The words felt foreign coming out of my mouth, like I was talking about someone else's life, not mine. Dave just looked at me, his beer halfway to his mouth, frozen. He didn't say anything at first, and for a second, I thought maybe he didn't believe me. But then he put the beer down and said, "Man, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say." We sat there for a while, not talking much, just letting it all sink in. When he finally spoke again, he asked me the question I'd been avoiding. "So, what are you going to do?" And that's when it hit me. I had no idea. I'd spent so much time obsessing over the betrayal, over what Lisa had done, that I hadn't even thought about what came next. I didn't know if I should stay, try to work it out, or just leave. I told him I didn't know, that I was stuck, and he nodded, like he understood. But then, as brothers do, he gave me his advice, and it wasn't what I wanted to hear. "You've got kids to think about, Mike. You need to be smart about this. Maybe you guys can work through it. I mean, people cheat, but it doesn't always mean the end, right?" I knew he was trying to help, but hearing him say that made my blood boil. Work through it? After everything she had done? After how she had lied to my face? I could feel the anger rising, but I swallowed it. I didn't want to argue. Not with Dave, but it didn't stop there. I talked to my mum a couple of days later. She's always been a big part of my life, always the one to give me comfort when things were tough. I thought maybe she'd have some wisdom, something that would make this hurt less. Instead, she just hugged me and said, "You'll figure it out, sweetie, but maybe it's not too late to fix things." Fix things? I wanted to scream. How do you fix something that's been shattered into a million pieces? How do you fix a marriage when the trust is gone, when every word feels like a lie? But instead of yelling, I just nodded, because what could I say? And that's when I realized something. Everyone had advice. Dave, Mum, even a couple of close friends I confided in. But none of them really understood. They didn't feel the betrayal like I did. They didn't wake up every morning with that knot in their chest, wondering how the person you loved could do this to you. They were on the outside looking in. And their words, well-meaning as they were, didn't help. If anything, they just made me feel more confused, more lost. Some said I should stay for the kids. Others said I should leave, that once the trust is broken, it's over. But no one gave me the answer I needed. No one could. Because the truth was, I didn't even know what I wanted. I didn't know if I could forgive her, if I even wanted to try. And the more people tried to help, the more I realized this was something I had to figure out on my own. So there I was, surrounded by people who loved me, who wanted to help. And yet, I'd never felt more alone. I thought I'd feel better after talking to everyone, after getting their advice, hearing their perspectives, but the truth is, it only made things harder. It didn't give me the clarity I was hoping for. If anything, it made the decision more confusing, more impossible. Stay or leave? That was the question. And no matter how much I thought about it, no matter how many times I tried to weigh the pros and cons, I couldn't get to an answer that felt right. On one hand, there were the kids. I kept thinking about them, about how this decision would affect their lives. What would it mean for them if I left? How would they handle their parents splitting up? Could I really tear apart our family because of what Lisa did? Could I put them through that pain just because I was hurt? But then, every time I thought about staying, every time I imagined trying to make it work, all I could see was her face. The lies, the betrayal, it was like a constant shadow hanging over us. Could I ever look at her the same way again? Could I ever trust her again? I knew staying wasn't just about keeping the family together. It meant living with the weight of what she did every single day. I'd be lying next to someone who had lied to me. I'd be sharing a home with someone who had broken our vows. Could I really live like that? Could I put on a brave face for the kids, pretend like everything was okay, when inside, I'd be carrying this anger, this hurt, every minute of every day? I went back and forth in my head 1,000 times. Some days, I'd convince myself that I could make it work, that maybe with time we could heal, rebuild what was broken. I'd think about the good times we had, the life we'd built together. I'd tell myself that maybe, just maybe, people could change. Maybe this didn't have to be the end. But then, just as quickly, the doubts would come rushing back. I'd remember the way she looked at me when I confronted her, the guilt, the lies. And I knew deep down, that no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I wanted to forgive her, I'd never be able to forget. I'd never be able to shake the feeling that every time she left the house, every time she looked at her phone, she might be lying again. It wasn't just about what she'd done. It was about the trust that was gone. And without trust, what did we really have left? I kept asking myself, can love survive without trust? Because that's what it came down to. I still loved her, as crazy as that sounds. Even after everything, part of me still loved her. But love without trust, is that enough? And then there was the other side of it. Leaving meant starting over. It meant walking away from the life we'd built, the life I thought we were going to have. It meant letting go of the dreams we had, the future I thought was ours. It meant being alone. That scared me. The idea of being alone again, of starting over, of putting myself out there, especially after everything I'd been through. I wasn't sure if I had the strength for that. I wasn't sure if I wanted to face that kind of pain again. So I sat there, day after day, with this decision hanging over me like a dark cloud. Stay and live with the weight of the betrayal, or leave and face the uncertainty of what came next. It felt like no matter what I chose, I was going to lose something. In the end, I knew there wasn't a right answer. There wasn't some magic solution that would fix everything, that would take the pain away. Whether I stayed or left, I'd be carrying this with me for a long time. The only question was, which path could I live with? I wasn't ready to make that decision. Not yet. But I knew that sooner or later, I'd have to. Because the life I was living, stuck in limbo between staying and leaving, it wasn't sustainable. And deep down, I knew that I couldn't live like that forever. Healing wasn't something that happened overnight. It wasn't like I woke up one day and suddenly everything was okay. No, it was slow, painfully slow. And in the beginning, it didn't even feel like healing. It felt like just trying to survive. The first few weeks after everything came out, I felt like I was drowning in my own thoughts. I'd wake up every morning with this heavy feeling in my chest, like I couldn't breathe, like I was suffocating under the weight of everything that had happened. Some days, I didn't even want to get out of bed. I didn't see the point. But then, little by little, something started to shift. I can't even pinpoint when it happened, but one day, I woke up, and the weight wasn't quite as heavy as it had been before. The pain was still there, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't crushing me the way it had been. I started to feel lighter, stronger. I decided I couldn't live in the past anymore. I couldn't keep replaying the same scenes over and over in my head, asking myself the same questions that had no answers. I had to let go, not for her, for me. I had to stop living in the what-ifs and start focusing on what I could control, on what came next. It wasn't easy. Letting go felt impossible at times, but I realized something. Holding on to that anger, that bitterness, wasn't hurting her. It was hurting me. Every time I let myself sink into those thoughts, I was giving her and that affair more power over my life, and I didn't want that anymore. I started doing things for myself again. Small things at first. I went for long walks, cleared my head. I started going to the gym, pushing myself physically, almost like I needed to feel something other than the emotional pain. It wasn't about looking a certain way, it was about reclaiming some control, some part of my life that I had let slip away, and slowly, I started to feel stronger. I wasn't just healing from the betrayal, I was rebuilding myself from the ground up. I talked to a therapist, something I never thought I'd do. At first, it felt weird, talking to a stranger about my problems, but it helped, more than I ever expected. It gave me a place to say everything I was too afraid to say out loud to anyone else. It helped me see that what happened wasn't my fault, that it wasn't about me not being enough. It was about her choices, her actions, And as I started to heal, I started to see things differently. I stopped blaming myself for what happened. I stopped asking myself what I could have done differently. Because the truth is, no matter what I had done, Lisa made her own choices. And those choices weren't a reflection of me. They were a reflection of her. I started to find my own strength again, not just physically, but emotionally. I began to trust myself again, to believe that I could get through this, that I could come out the other side stronger than I was before. Healing wasn't a straight line. There were days when I felt like I was making progress, and then days when it all came crashing down again. But I kept going. I kept pushing forward because I knew that the only way out of this was through it. And I realized something important along the way. Healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's not about pretending the pain isn't there. It's about learning to live with it, learning to carry it in a way that doesn't break you. It's about finding the strength to rebuild yourself, even when everything inside you feels like it's falling apart. So, yeah, I'm still healing. I'm still figuring it out as I go, but for the first time in a long time, I believe I can do it. I believe I can get through this. And that, in itself, feels like a victory. I never thought I'd be in this position, starting over, meeting someone new. The idea of it felt impossible for the longest time. After what happened with Lisa, I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to open up to someone again, let alone trust them. But then, out of nowhere, she came into my life. Her name was Sarah. We met at a mutual friend's get-together. I wasn't even looking to meet anyone. In fact, I almost didn't go that night. I remember thinking, what's the point? But something made me go, and there she was. At first, it was casual. We talked about nothing in particular, just getting to know each other like people do when they're meeting for the first time. And for a while, that's all it was. Casual, light, nothing serious. But there was something about her, something that made me feel at ease, like I didn't have to pretend. Still, I was hesitant. I mean, how could I not be? After everything with Lisa, the idea of getting close to someone again, of letting my guard down, it terrified me. Every time I thought about opening up, I could feel that old fear creeping back in. What if it happened again? What if I let myself trust someone, only to get hurt all over again? There were moments in the beginning when I almost pulled back completely. I'd feel myself getting close to her, starting to care about her. And then that voice in my head would start whispering, "Don't get too comfortable. Don't trust too easily. Remember what happened last time." But Sarah was different. She was patient with me. She didn't push, didn't rush me into anything. She just showed up consistently. She was there when I needed someone to talk to, when I needed to just get out of my own head. And over time, I started to realize something. Trust isn't something that happens all at once. It's something that builds, little by little, moment by moment. It wasn't about grand gestures or sweeping promises. It was about the small things, the way she'd check in on me without expecting anything in return, the way she'd listen, really listen, when I talked about my past, my fears, my doubts, the way she'd just sit with me in silence, no pressure, no judgment. Slowly, I started to let my guard down. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every time I felt myself getting closer to her, I had to fight the instinct to pull away. But I realized something. If I wanted to heal, if I wanted to move forward, I had to let go of that fear. I had to stop letting Lisa's betrayal define every relationship I had moving forward. It wasn't fair to Sarah, and it wasn't fair to me. What happened with Lisa? That was her choice, her mistake. It didn't mean every woman was going to hurt me. It didn't mean I was destined to be betrayed again. And so, bit by bit, I started to trust Sarah. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could open up to someone again without getting hurt. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened to me. It was about realizing that I had the strength to move past it, to rebuild. I'll be honest, I'm still scared. There are days when that fear creeps back in, when I catch myself waiting for something to go wrong. But then I remind myself that trust is a choice. It's a risk, sure, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. Because the truth is, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have someone in my life who values me, who respects me, who sees me for who I am. And for the first time in a long time, I believe that's possible. I never thought I'd get here. After everything I went through with Lisa, after all the pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, I never thought I'd find myself in this place. A place where love didn't feel like a risk anymore, a place where happiness wasn't something just out of reach. But here I am. It didn't happen all at once. Finding love again wasn't like flipping a switch. It was slow, it was careful, and there were moments when I wasn't sure if I could do it. Moments where the fear of getting hurt again crept back in. But something changed along the way. With Sarah, it was different. There was no drama, no secrets, no pretending. It was just easy. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could be myself. I didn't have to put up walls or guard my heart like it was some fragile thing that could break at any moment. With her, I felt safe. And it wasn't about forgetting what happened with Lisa. That part of my life will always be there, always be part of my story. But it doesn't define me anymore. I'm not the man who was betrayed, or the man who couldn't trust. I'm just me. And Sarah sees me for who I am, for all that I've been through, for all that I am now. Love feels different this time around. It's not built on the fantasy I used to have, the idea that nothing could ever go wrong, that trust was this unbreakable thing that could never be questioned. No, it's deeper than that. It's real. It's about accepting that we're human, that we're flawed, that sometimes we mess up. But it's also about choosing each other, day after day, moment after moment. With Sarah, there's a quiet kind of joy. It's not the fireworks or the fairy tale I used to imagine. It's better. It's the simple things, the way we laugh together, the way we just sit together in comfortable silence, the way I can look at her and know, without a doubt, that she's here for me. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because she wants to be. And that's what happiness feels like now. It's not some far-off dream or a fleeting moment. It's the everyday moments, the little things that make life feel full again. It's waking up next to someone who genuinely cares, who values me, who sees me. I thought I'd never feel this way again. I thought love was something I'd lost forever, something I wasn't meant to have anymore. But I was wrong, and for the first time in a long time, I'm glad I was wrong. I'm happy, really happy. Not the kind of happiness that's loud and in your face, but the kind that sits in your chest, warm and steady. The kind that makes you feel like, no matter what happens, you'll be okay, because you've been through the worst and you've come out the other side. And you know what? I deserve this. After everything, after all the hurt and the heartbreak, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have someone in my life who respects me, who loves me the way I've always wanted to be loved. For the first time, I'm not afraid. I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop or for everything to fall apart. I'm just here, in this moment. In this life I've rebuilt, piece by piece, and I'm happy. When I look back at everything that's happened, it feels like a different life, like I'm not even the same person who went through all that pain and confusion. And in a way, I'm not. I've changed. I've grown. But I've also learned some of the most important lessons I think life has to offer. First, I learned that people aren't perfect. They make mistakes, sometimes big ones. And sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who hurt you the worst. But their mistakes don't define you. I spent so long questioning myself, wondering what I did wrong, how I could have been better, how I could have prevented it. But the truth is, Lisa's choices were hers. They weren't a reflection of my worth, and they weren't something I could control. I had to learn to let go of that. I also learned that trust is fragile. It's something that takes years to build, but it can be shattered in an instant. And once it's gone, it's hard, sometimes impossible, to get it back. But that doesn't mean you should close yourself off forever. I thought for a long time that I'd never trust anyone again. I thought I'd always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next betrayal, but eventually I realized that trust is a choice. And it's a risk, yes, but it's a risk worth taking if you want to move forward. Another thing I've come to understand is that healing isn't linear. It's not a straight line from pain to happiness. It's messy. Some days you feel like you're making progress, and other days it feels like you're right back where you started. But that's okay. That's part of the process. The important thing is that you keep moving. You keep pushing forward, even when it feels like you're stuck. Because one day you'll wake up and the weight won't feel as heavy, and eventually you'll find that you're stronger than you ever thought you could be. And then there's love. I used to think love was something you found once, something that lasted forever, without effort. But now I know that love is a choice you make every day. It's not about perfection or never making mistakes. It's about showing up, being present, being honest, and choosing to care about someone even when it's hard. But most of all, I've learned that happiness is possible after heartbreak. It doesn't always come in the way you expect. It doesn't look like the fairy tale I once believed in. But it's real, and it's worth fighting for. I thought my life was over when I found out about Lisa's affair. I thought I'd never recover. But here I am on the other side. And I'm living proof that even after your world falls apart, you can rebuild it. And when you do, it can be even better than before. So if there's one thing I'd want anyone listening to this to take away, it's this. Don't let the pain define you. Don't let someone else's choices make you feel like you're not enough. You are enough. You deserve happiness, even after the worst kind of betrayal. And it might take time, longer than you want, but you'll get there. And when you do, you'll realize just how strong you really are.